At the beginning of every year, I try and come up with a list of movies that I want to see at some point throughout the year. Usually that list is huge, and I don't always get to, as a matter of fact, I almost never get to all of them. There are usually some that I prioritize over others, and some just surprise me. So this is going to be a list of not my top 10 horror movies of 2024, but instead it's going to be my top 10 of movies that I watched for the first time in 2024 that I just found amazing. So let's get into it. I'm really excited to share these with you guys, and I hope either if you haven't seen them, you seek them out, or if you have seen them, you share the same sentiment as I do.
You are about to enter a new dimension in television, a dimension of 3D sight, sound, and space.
So the first movie that I watched this year that I actually really liked, that surprised me how much I liked it, was Uncle Kent 2. I talked about this in a recent video for my Vinegar Syndrome, some sale they had, and I picked this up. This movie really surprised me. This was like a really fun comedy, surrealist comedy, I guess, adventure, thriller. Like, there's a lot going on in this movie. It's really, really interesting. Like I said, I talked about it in another video, so I'm not going to go on too much about it, but it basically follows this guy who thinks the world is a simulation, and he wants to film a sequel to his past movie called Uncle Kent, which is a real movie. So it's like a meta-narrative, but it goes on his journey to make this second film, and along the way he's finding like glitches in the Matrix. Basically it culminates in like this crazy finale. Without saying, it's hard to explain. It's a hard movie to talk about because there's like too much going on. Not too much, but there's like too much to really like get out the words for.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
So I really recommend at least seeking out a trailer for this and checking out Uncle Kent 2. I think you'll like it. So the second movie on my list sort of surprised me because I thought it would be like a kind of like a novelty kind of thing, and it ended up like really like making me kind of emotional, and that is the Rock-afire Explosion. This was an AG for release. This was actually came out in like 2008 by these two documentary filmmakers, but AGFA put out a Blu-ray recently, which is how I watched it. It talks about basically these guys who are really deep in the fandom of Showbiz Pizza, who go so far, especially, well, one or two of them actually have a museum, and then this other guy, he has a whole Showbiz setup in his like garage or shed or barn or whatever, where he has all these animatronics set up and he programmed them to do whatever song he wants and everything. And it's really the story of these guys, and like it's a documentary, but it's kind of a character piece on like these specific individuals, and it's really interesting and it's really heartwarming and touching. And the owner of Showbiz is in it, and he meets up with some of these guys, and like it's just really cool. It's something I'm gonna go back to again for sure. Because I really, really enjoyed it, and it really took me by surprise. If you like documentaries, and even if you aren't really a documentary guy, the way that it's shot and the narrative is told is really fun, and it's just a great, touching little documentary. And you know, it made it on my list, so I would seek it out if you can find it. I think it might be sold out, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere. So if you can, I highly recommend it. So coming in at number 7 is Dr. Caligari. Now, this is not the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This is just Dr. Caligari from 1980. I'll put up the the date here. I can't remember. 1980 something. But it's like this very, very visually interesting. A lot of like bright colors set on a dark background. Kind of like a Tim Burton-y kind of vibe to it, which makes sense because Tim Burton was inspired by German Expressionism, and obviously being titled Dr. Caligari, this is also inspired by German Expressionism. It tells the story of like this insane asylum where people are sexually repressed, and they try and like unrepress them, and like it's just bizarre and fun and campy. It's very campy, so keep that in mind. You have to like camp. It's just a bizarre, fun, crazy watch, and if nothing else for the visuals, definitely seek it out. I'm gonna put, you know, a little clip of it here. I think these were all like theater actors, which makes sense because of their performances. But Definitely something different and kind of a novelty. Really took me by surprise at how much I liked it. So this is available in 4K somewhere, so seek it out there, but I think it's also on Shudder, I want to say. So it is streaming, so definitely check it out, especially if you like that style. It's very theater-esque and very surreal, and like I said, it takes a lot of inspiration from like Tim Burton and German Expressionism. So if you're into that kind of thing and camp, check it out. So number 8 on my list is Speak No Evil, and I'm not talking about the remake, the American remake. I actually haven't seen that one yet. I'm talking about the original Dutch Speak No Evil. This really surprised me. So I heard about the remake, and then someone suggested I watch the original, and having seen the trailer for the first one, or for the remake, like probably 100 times, I was like, a little like, I don't know, I don't really care. But I decided one day to just watch the original, and it was amazing. I was like, oh my god, this is actually like a really intense drama thriller. Went places I did not see it going. It's just a slow burn into like madness. You can feel the tension, like palpably feel the tension building as the movie goes on to the end where you're just like, whoa, okay. If you've seen the American remake, definitely watch the Dutch one, because I'm not saying one's better than the other, but where the Dutch one goes, I don't believe the American one goes. And it just escalates and escalates, and it's just such an interesting take on like societal expectations and politeness and everything, and how like that sometimes that isn't always the best thing. It's just a really, really intense movie. So I highly recommend Speak No Evil, the original Dutch version. So coming in at number 6 is a movie that is niche, and that is Ogroff the Mad Mutilator. I found this movie early last year. I forget how I found it. I don't remember if I read about it somewhere or what, honestly. It was on YouTube. I think it might still be on YouTube. And this is I'm gonna do a whole video on this movie. This is a very it's shrouded in mystery in a lot of ways, because the guy who made this is the only film he's made. He used to own a video rental shop in France. This is a French film. He just decided to make this crazy movie, and it's shot on 16mm. Yeah, I think it's shot on 16mm and 8mm, and like maybe even video at some points. Like it's all just kind of like mixed together. I think it's 8mm. But anyway, the point is like it's all this like different hodgepodge of stuff, and it's like a psychotronic trip through like madness and hell. It's basically a slasher movie if like you were just on drugs, like out in the woods. Like it's so dream logic-y and bizarre, and especially because there's no dialogue throughout the whole movie. Well, there are like some grunts and screams and stuff, but all that kind of stuff was also overdubbed after, so it has this very like dreamy feel to it, and the music is crazy. Amazing synth score, if you like that kind of low budget trashy score. It's just like this nightmarish fever dream, and it's a slasher movie about this guy. I believe he was a war veteran who like lived in the woods and wouldn't accept that the war was over, so he just kind of camped out in the woods for years, and then some kids like come onto his land, and he snaps basically and starts going after them. It's crazy, man. I don't even know how to really describe it. You have to just go watch it. It's if you like shot on video and shot on video adjacent stuff, this is a must watch. This is probably in my top 5 shot on video adjacent movies of all time now, so seek it out. So now we get into my top 5 of 2024 movies that I watched. And number 5 is a movie from Chile called The Wolf House. This movie blew me away, completely blew me away. I remember seeing the trailer for it and being like, wow, that is like a visually, I've never seen anything like this. visually arresting in every way. Basically, how they filmed this was they bought a house and they just painted the walls, and so like all the stop motion is on the walls and it melds into like 3D stop motion and then back to 2D stop motion on the walls and like throughout this whole house that they filmed in. It is just an incredible looking movie and very dark, and it's a very dark movie, and it's also a very emotional film about this German colony in Chile where this former Nazi ran the colony, and he was abusing children and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of tells the tale of like one woman who escapes, and man, it's a really dark, has a really dark undertone to it, which is represented well in the film. But when you actually look at the story that this is based on, it really gives it you get a whole new appreciation for it. If watching the movie on its own wasn't enough, it really sinks in like how dark and unfortunate this was. A lot of surreal images, a lot of allegory, really dreamlike, and I can't recommend it enough. And coming in at number 4 is I Saw the Devil. This is a South Korean film by Kim Ji-woon. It's kind of it is a serial killer movie, but it's also a revenge film. It's intense, man. This is an intense movie. Don't recommend it if you're in a good mood or if it's a sunny day. This is something you put on at night and just pull back the covers and thank God that you're under them, because it goes places you wouldn't expect them to go. I kind of did expect them because I watch a lot of these kind of films, but this blows a lot of them out of the water, the way that this narrative is told and the way this revenge plot goes and everything. It stars Choi Min-sik from Old Boy. If you haven't seen that, definitely watch that. It is basically this revenge film about this serial killer who murders this detective's wife, and the cat and mouse game that they play, and the lengths that someone will go for revenge, and is revenge even worth it? Does it actually heal anything? It's a very spiritual film, I guess you could say, in that way. It really touches on a lot of different themes and is really dark, and nobody really ends up being a good guy, you could say. Kind of like Old Boy, but I Saw the Devil, can't recommend it enough. So now we're down to my top 3, and they're not going to disappoint. My top 3 start off with Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure. Now, I did watch Longlegs this year, and after watching that, I felt a little like it was lacking a little bit of something, and I wasn't sure what it was. And a lot of people told me, if you liked Longlegs, to check out Cure. And so I did. It was streaming on the Criterion channel, I believe. And this was directed by Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who also directed Pulse and the notorious Chime, which is impossible to watch. And he's just a master of psychological horror, psychological thrillers. This is very similar to Longlegs in the way that the antagonist is a serial killer who kills through non-conventional means and the games he plays with his victims. It's just a really tense, supernaturally serial killer psychological horror. It's beautifully shot. There's so many incredible moments in it of just unnerving suspense, and it blew me away. It really did. So if you are a fan of Pulse, if you saw Chime and you're a fan of that, stuff like I mentioned, I Saw the Devil, Memories of Murder, those kind of South Korean films, definitely go check out Cure. Although Cure is a Japanese film, but it has a lot of those same notes in it. I can't recommend Cure enough. I think, especially if you liked Longlegs and you felt like you wanted a little bit more, definitely go watch Cure. It's from 1996, I believe, and you can find it on the Criterion, or they have a Blu-ray, so definitely go seek out Cure. And number 2 is something that I never knew I needed, and my goodness that I need it. It was Messiah of Evil. This is everything I want in a movie. It has this very Lovecraftian feel to it. It's set on a coastal town. It's very eerie. There's lots of unnerving liminal spaces almost throughout the movie. It stars this woman who goes to find her father who's been missing and travels to this seaside village to find him, and realizes when she's there that things aren't quite what they seem and that something weird has been going on, and tries to unravel the mystery. It is just a mood like you wouldn't believe. The atmosphere in this movie is off the charts. It's from the 70s, and it actually was directed by the director of Howard the Duck. So talk about polar opposites, although you could consider Howard the Duck a horror film. It is just, it's a masterpiece. It's almost like a giallo-y kind of a film. It's like a giallo Lovecraftian mix-up, but more on the Lovecraft than the giallo. It just has some kind of elements of that, especially in the way that it's filmed. You could tell me it was Italian and I would believe you. This is like in my top 10 movies now. Like, I just absolutely love this film, so seek it out. It recently got a Blu-ray, and I'm sure I believe it's streaming on Night Flight, or it was, and I'm sure it's streaming elsewhere. So if you like Lovecraftian stuff, giallo stuff, 70s stuff, please go watch Messiah of Evil. Now, for my number one, I have to give a huge shout out to my buddy Tom for turning me on to this movie. One of my favorite films of 2023 was When Evil Lurks. I thought that was masterfully done, a very interesting take on, I guess, zombies, although I hate to really say that because they're not, but basically this plague infiltrates this town in When Evil Lurks, if you haven't seen it, and things kind of spiral out of control. Now, when I watched When Evil Lurks with my buddy Tom, he was like, you know what, this reminds me a lot of this movie called The Wailing. Him and I are both huge fans of South Korean directors, and he was like, you should really watch The Wailing. And I was like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And he was like, no, like, you really have to watch this. So he came over like the week after or something and brought The Wailing, and we put it on, and oh my god, everything I loved about When Evil Lurks was turned up to 10 in this movie. Oh, I don't even know where to begin. This is like the perfect horror movie for me. This is in my top 5 from now on, right next to The Thing, with tension and dread, and the way it's shot. It's so beautiful, the turns it takes. You think you know where it's going, and then you don't, then you do, then you don't. It just completely turns your head around, and it's in my top 5 favorite horror movies of all time now. Yeah, The Wailing. It's basically about this plague that comes to this village, and nobody can figure out what's causing it and what's happening to these people. And eventually this detective finds out where he believes the cause is coming from. Then after some revenge aspects happen, you think you figured it out, and then things completely turn on their head, and you're like, okay, well, now I guess I don't know. And then you think you figure it out again, and you still have no idea, and then by the end you're like, I don't even, what the hell just happened? Beautifully shot, beautifully written, beautifully acted. I don't really want to talk too much about it because I don't want to give much of it away, but if you like psychological horror and supernatural horror and Korean horror, and if you liked When Evil Lurks, this is everything you could ever want. And it's my number one of last year, without a shadow of a doubt. The Wailing is a masterpiece, truly. There's a 4K now of it, and I'm sure it's streaming somewhere, so try and find it. Go watch The Wailing, please. You will not be disappointed. So there you go, guys. That's my top 10 films that I watched in 2024. Not new releases, just films that I saw that blew me away and surprised me in ways I didn't think they were going to surprise me. Most of them, really. It just goes to show, sometimes you just pick out a movie and it just changes your freaking world. Hopefully next year I'll have another one for you with even more bangers. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. A massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you would like to support this channel, you can find those links in the description. Bye-bye. It's